So today is the day, December 10th, 2025, and right now, as we speak, Australia is logging off. It's a world-first experiment, and millions of teenagers are now, by law, banned from social media. It is a massive, massive gamble, and you better believe the entire world is watching to see what happens next. All right, let's get into it. First, we're going to break down what the Great Log-Off actually is. Then we'll dive into the really powerful arguments for why this is happening and the equally strong case against it. After that, we'll look at the messy reality on the ground, this digital cat and mouse game. And finally, we'll ask the big question: what does this huge experiment mean for the future of the internet for all of us? So first things first, what exactly just happened down under? And let's be clear, this isn't some friendly suggestion or a government guideline. Nope, this is a fundamental, legally binding change to digital life for an entire generation of Australians. And for teens like 14-year-old Sarai, you can hear that the impact is immediate and it's personal. This whole debate isn't some abstract policy discussion for them. It's about their connections, their communities, and as Sarai puts it, it's about fairness. This law just landed right in the middle of their world. And just look at the sheer scope of this thing. We're talking about the absolute titans of the internet: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, the whole shebang. This isn't about blocking one or two niche apps. It's a near-total blackout from the very platforms that basically define online culture for young people. Now, here's a really crucial detail in how this law is set up. The entire legal responsibility, the whole burden of making this work, falls squarely on the shoulders of the tech companies. So if a teenager finds a way around the ban, they're not in trouble, their parents aren't in trouble, the platforms, they're the ones on the hook. Which, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all: why? Why take such an incredibly drastic step? Well, the arguments for the ban are driven by a really powerful and you could say primal desire to protect young people from some very real dangers. And at the absolute heart of the pro-ban argument are just gut-wrenching, tragic stories like Tilly Rosevern's phones. Her mother's words, they captured the deepest fear that so many parents have, that the phone in their child's hand is a door to a world of unregulated harm, from relentless cyberbullying to truly dangerous content. And that fear, it's not just a few people. It resonates widely. A staggering 77% of Australian adults support this ban. So this isn't some fringe idea. This policy has huge public backing. It's seen as a necessary, maybe even overdue, intervention. So when you boil it all down, supporters believe this is about one thing: reclaiming childhood from the grip of algorithms and endless feeds. Prime Minister Albanese even said the goal is to give kids a childhood back, to protect their mental health and just let them be kids, away from the constant pressure of being online. Okay, but as you can imagine, that is not the whole story. Not by a long shot. There is a very different and, you could say, equally passionate view. The case against the ban says that all this protection, it comes at way too high a cost. And it's not just teens who are pushing back. We're talking about major institutions like the Australian Human Rights Commission. They've sounded the alarm, basically warning that a blanket ban, no matter how well-intentioned, could be a serious overreach with its own set of dangers. Their argument is that this is just too blunt of an instrument. It restricts basic rights to expression and information. It risks cutting off vital lifelines for marginalized youth. Think about LGBTQ+ teens or kids in remote areas who find their community online. And maybe the scariest part? It could just push kids away from the big, moderated platforms into much darker, unmonitored corners of the web. And you hear from teens like 15-year-old Ewan who are basically saying, hold on a second. They're pushing back against this whole narrative of addiction. To them, social media isn't some hijacker that takes over their life. It's just part of it, something they use to relax and connect in their downtime, not the all-consuming crisis many adults seem to think it is. And this right here, this is the heart of the whole debate. It's a series of trade-offs. For every intended protection, critics see a huge risk. You've got reducing mental health risks versus limiting free expression, preventing cyberbullying versus potentially isolating vulnerable kids. It's this fundamental clash between protection and freedom. Okay, so we've heard the arguments, right? The for and the against. But with the law now in effect, what's actually happening on the ground? Well, the reality on day one is far from a simple on-off switch. It's already a messy, complicated game of digital cat and mouse. The government itself is calling the rollout an iterative process. Now, in plain English, that's a nice way of saying it's not really working perfectly yet. The age verification tech is all over the place, and of course, tech-savvy teens immediately started finding and sharing ways to get around it. And when you look at how they're doing it, well, it's almost ridiculously simple. A basic VPN service lets a teenager mask their location in just a few clicks. They can make it look like they're logging in from New Zealand or the US. And just like that, the block is totally bypassed. It really shows you how hard it is to put up a wall on a borderless internet. And all of this brings us to the final and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. This isn't just about what's happening in Australia. This is a massive test case, a global experiment that could literally reshape the internet for young people everywhere. And you can be sure everyone is watching. We're talking rival governments, we're talking big tech in Silicon Valley, parents groups from all over the world. All eyes are on this experiment. For better or worse, Australia has become the world's laboratory for digital regulation. And this isn't just a possibility, the ripple effect is already happening. Malaysia's already planning an even stricter ban. Countries all across Europe are moving in the same direction. What started as an idea in Australia is quickly becoming a potential global trend. So how is the government going to enforce this, really? Well, their biggest weapon is, you guessed it, money. A lot of money, with potential fines hitting nearly 50 million Australian dollars. For any platform that doesn't comply, the tech companies have a massive financial reason to at least try to make this work. So that's where we are. We're left with this massive open question. Is Australia building a blueprint for a healthier digital future, a new way to protect its children? Or is this a grand but ultimately impossible experiment that just proves you can't build a wall to keep a generation from the modern world? The answer isn't going to be decided in Parliament. It's going to unfold in the real and digital lives of millions of teenagers.